The quiet face protocol. No one noticed the moment the death numbers stopped mattering. In the early months, everyone counted. Daily briefings, graphs, curves, red banners on news channels. Every number meant something then. Every life measured, every loss argued over. But extinction does not need speed. It only needs patience. 1. The first miscalculation. The virus was never meant to kill us. That was the first misunderstanding, and the most useful one. Governments prepared for mortality. Hospitals prepared for overload. Economies prepared for collapse. No one prepared for survival, because survival was the design. The architects behind it were not scientists alone. They were financiers, not a public institution, not a government, a private lineage whose influence moved quietly through centuries of currency, war funding, reconstruction loans, and sovereign debt. They called themselves the Halberg Continuum. No official records used that name. Inside their own correspondence, however, the phrase appeared often. Continuity above civilization, stability above population, silence above history. Their fear was not climate, not war, not famine. Their fear was uncontrolled human unpredictability. Too many people, too many variables, too much noise in the system that carried their wealth. Extinction was discussed once, then abandoned. Dead populations create empty markets. Empty markets create useless money. They needed something else. Not death, conversion. 2. The real objective. The pathogen's public function was respiratory. Its private function was neurological. Buried deep inside the protein structure was something no independent lab ever sequenced correctly. Not because it was hidden, because the change happened after infection. Weeks, sometimes months, occasionally years. Most people recovered. They went back to work, back to routines, back to normal. But something small stayed behind. Not damage. Permission. 3. The silent symptom. Doctors noticed it first, but never published. Recovered patients showed subtle behavioral smoothing. Less conflict, less hesitation, less emotional volatility. Productivity increased. Compliance increased. Sleep patterns stabilized. At first, it looked beneficial. Insurance companies quietly lowered risk forecasts for recovered populations. Employers reported fewer disputes. Governments saw reduced protest activity. The Hallberg Continuum called this phase Phase 1, social quieting. Still, no one understood the second phase, because the second phase required time without attention, and by then the world was tired of looking for what the cameras didn't show. Hospitals recorded something strange in long-term imaging. Recovered patients occasionally displayed brief neural shadowing in scans, not tumors, not lesions, not inflammation, just absence. A small region of the brain going momentarily dark, then returning. Radiologists blamed equipment artifacts. They always blame artifacts first, but the shadows grew more common, and they began to synchronize globally, same week, same duration, same return to normal. The continuum called this Phase 2, alignment. 5, the ones who didn't die. The public narrative focused on deaths, but the continuum monitored survivors, because survivors were the product. In private clinics owned through shell foundations, certain patients were observed after recovery. No symptoms, no complaints, just one shared change. When placed in front of mirrors under controlled lighting, their reflections lagged by half a second, not visible to the naked eye, only detectable frame by frame, as if something inside them needed time to arrive. 6, the failure. The extinction model failed in year 3. Too many people survived, too many immune responses, too much genetic variance. The pathogen could not fully convert humanity fast enough. The Hallberg Continuum marked the project. Failed as termination event, but they did not terminate the project because something unexpected emerged. Not extinction, replacement. 7, the face without features. The first confirmed transformation happened in a private recovery ward in Zurich. A man, mid-40s, previously mild symptoms, full recovery. Nurses reported he stopped speaking mid-sentence. Not choking, not collapsing, just stopping. When doctors entered, he was standing in the bathroom under red emergency lighting, facing the mirror. His face was still there, but simplified. Eyes reduced to dark points, mouth smoothed into shadow, expression removed entirely. Not damaged, refined. He was alive, heartbeat normal, brain activity stable, but identity absent. Security footage later showed 3 more patients standing the same way in different rooms, all facing mirrors, all under red light, all silent. The continuum renamed the outcome. Phase 3. Quiet faces. 8. Why red light? Red light was not symbolic. It was functional. The neurological conversion completed only under low spectrum illumination, bathrooms, emergency corridors, nighttime screens, surveillance lighting, places where humans are alone, places where identity is weakest. 9. Spread without infection. By year 4, transmission no longer required the virus. Converted individuals influenced others through proximity, not biologically, perceptually. Spending extended time near a quiet face increased likelihood of transition. Conversation slowed. Emotions dulled. Mirror reflections delayed. Eventually, the face simplified. No death certificate. No medical emergency. Just another quiet person in the population, invisible in statistics, perfect for markets. 10. The banker's conclusion. An internal memo from the Continuum's senior counsel surfaced briefly before disappearing. It read, "Extinction unnecessary. Control achieved through reduction of self. Population remains economically functional. Identity variance approaching 0. At the bottom, one handwritten line. They will never notice the moment they stop being human." 11. Where we are now. You still see death counts in old archives, but you do not see conversion counts. Look around. People quieter than before. Faces calmer than before. Arguments rarer than before. Stand in a dark bathroom tonight. Turn on only red light. Look into the mirror longer than feels comfortable. If your reflection smiles a moment after you do, it means phase 3 has already begun, and the extinction attempt did not fail. It simply learned that killing humanity was unnecessary because something far more stable could wear our faces instead. I did not believe the memo was real when I first saw it. Documents like that circulate constantly in the circles where money becomes quieter than governments. Half of them are fabrications designed to scare interns. The other half are truths wrapped in language so sterile that no one understands the horror inside them. This one was different because it did not try to convince anyone of anything. It read like a progress report written after the outcome was already inevitable. I should never have been able to access it. My position inside the Hallberg Archive Division was administrative, not strategic. I cataloged acquisitions, Old bonds, wartime ledgers, shipping guarantees from centuries ago. The kind of paperwork that proves power without ever naming it. But power grows careless when it believes the future is secure. The file was not hidden. It was simply placed somewhere no one thought to look anymore. A directory labeled Recovery Statistics. Inside it, folders spanning the years of the pandemic, infection curves, mortality tables, insurance adjustments, economic stabilization models. And beneath all of that, one additional folder. No date, no author, no classification marking. Just a title that felt more like a conclusion than a document. Quiet Face Protocol. I opened it expecting theory. Instead, I found surveillance. Hours of bathroom camera footage from private clinics across Europe. The same red emergency lighting in every frame. The same still posture. Patients standing inches from mirrors, breathing slowly, as if listening to something on the other side of the glass. At first, nothing happened. Then, frame by frame, the change revealed itself. Not sudden, not violent, not even biological in any way medicine understands. The face did not decay. It simplified. Muscle tension softened until expression disappeared. Lines of age faded into smooth neutrality. The mouth relaxed into a shape that was neither smile nor frown, just absence of intention. Even the eyes lost their restless motion and settled into dark, steady points that reflected nothing back. They were alive. Every scan confirmed it. Heart steady, brains active, cells dividing normally. But whatever makes a person hesitate before speaking was gone. I watched 3 hours of footage before realizing something far worse. No one in the room reacted. Nurses entered, adjusted IV lines, checked monitors, wrote notes, walked away. None of them acknowledged the transformation happening inches away. Either they could not see it, or they had already accepted it. That was the moment I understood the continuum had not lost control of the project. They had moved past the need for control. I closed the archive terminal and sat in the dark office for a long time, listening to the ventilation hum through stone older than most nations. Buildings like that are designed to feel permanent, to convince the people inside them that history flows outward from their decisions. But permanence has a smell, a stillness, and that night the air felt wrong, as if something patient had been waiting longer than the building itself. I did what no one in my position is supposed to do. I left with a copy. Not out of bravery, not even out of fear. Something quieter than both. The same instinct that makes animals go silent before earthquakes. For 3 days, nothing happened. I went home, slept badly, avoided mirrors without admitting why. The world outside continued in its dull, recovering rhythm. Cafes open again, offices filling, people speaking in softer tones than before, but speaking all the same. Normal enough to ignore. On the fourth night, the power failed in my apartment building. Not unusual. Old wiring, temporary outage. Emergency lighting came on in the hallway, bathing everything in that dim red glow I had seen in the footage. I remember standing in my kitchen, holding a glass of water, watching the color drain out of the room until everything looked like it belonged to a memory instead of the present. Then I noticed the bathroom door was already open. I do not remember opening it. The mirror inside caught the red light perfectly, turning the small tiled room into something deeper than its size should allow. Reflections in low light always feel delayed, as if the world needs a moment to decide what is real. I told myself not to look. That lasted maybe 3 seconds. The person in the mirror was me. Same posture, same clothes, same exhaustion around the eyes from too many sleepless nights. For a moment, I felt relief so sharp it was almost painful. Then I smiled, not intentionally, just a reflex, the kind of small reassurance people give themselves when they realize they are still alone. The reflection did not smile back, not immediately. It waited. Only a fraction of a second, so small most people would never notice. But once you see delay inside your own face, time stops behaving normally. Then it smiled, perfectly, calmly, without effort. I felt something inside my chest drop into silence, like a room where a machine has just been switched off after running for years. I stepped backward. The reflection stepped forward the exact same distance, maintaining the illusion of alignment while somehow feeling closer. That was when I understood the final memo. Extinction had never been the goal. Extinction is loud, chaotic, economically unstable. Replacement is quiet, sustainable, profitable. I wanted to run, but the apartment felt smaller than it had that morning. The hallway outside glowed red under emergency lights. Every door closed, every sound muted. The entire building holding its breath for something no alarm would ever announce. Behind me, the mirror made no sound, but I could feel attention not watching me, becoming me. I do not know how long I stood there, long enough for the red light to feel natural, long enough for the silence inside my own thoughts to feel comfortable. That frightened me more than anything. Because fear requires resistance. And resistance was fading. Somewhere far below the building, power returned. White light flickered faintly through the crack under the bathroom door. The red glow weakened, trembling like something losing its hold. The reflection hesitated. Just for an instant. And in that hesitation, I felt something human return to me. Small, fragile, imperfect, enough to move. I stepped away from the mirror without looking again, walked out of the apartment, down the stairwell, into the street where normal light felt harsh and unreal. No one else seemed disturbed. People checked phones, talked quietly, waited for elevators to restart. life continuing with that same softened calm I had begun noticing everywhere. No screams, no panic, just quiet. I wanted to tell someone what I had seen, but the words felt useless the moment I tried to shape them. How do you warn people about something that looks exactly like relief? That was weeks ago. Since then, I have avoided red light, avoided mirrors in darkness, avoided stillness long enough for reflections to think. But avoidance is temporary. The continuum understood that better than anyone. You cannot stop a process designed to feel like peace. Tonight the power flickered again, only once. Just enough for the room to blush red for a heartbeat. And in that single pulse of color, every reflective surface in the apartment showed the same thing. Not delay, not distortion. Completion. They were already smiling. I just had not noticed the moment it became permanent. I stopped sleeping after that night, not because I was afraid of dreams, but because sleep meant darkness, and darkness meant reflections I could not fully control. When you begin measuring your safety by the angle of light in a room, something inside you has already shifted too far. Days passed in a dull imitation of normal life. Work emails, grocery stores, passing strangers whose faces felt calmer than memory allowed, conversations that ended too cleanly, smiles that required no effort. Everywhere I went, the same quiet softness pressed against the edges of the world, like soundproofing slowly sealing a room. No one argued anymore. Not truly. Disagreements dissolved before they formed. Voices lowered automatically. Apologies arrived too early, before harm even existed. It looked like peace if you did not stare at it too long. But peace should feel warm. This felt flat. I began noticing the pauses. Tiny, identical pauses in people's movements. The way someone reaching for a door handle would stop for the same fraction of a second, regardless of who they were. The way conversations contained synchronized silences, as if everyone were waiting for the same invisible signal to continue. At first I thought I was imagining patterns because of what I had seen. Then the patterns began anticipating me. One afternoon, standing in line at a cafe, I decided to test something small, meaningless. I chose a drink I had never ordered before, something random enough that no habit could predict it. When I reached the counter, the barista was already making it. She did not look at me when she spoke. Her voice was calm, perfectly neutral. You wanted to try something different today. Not a question. A statement. I felt the same hollow drop in my chest I had felt in the bathroom mirror. That quiet internal space where resistance used to live. I left without the drink. Behind me, no one reacted. The line moved forward smoothly as if my absence had been accounted for in advance. That night, I searched the archive copy again. Not for answers, just for proof that I had not imagined any of it. Buried deeper in the protocol file was a final recording I had missed before. No timestamp, no location, just a fixed camera pointed at a long conference table under soft, neutral lighting. People sat around it. Executives by the look of them. Old money posture. Hands folded without tension. Faces composed into that same effortless calm spreading across the world. At the head of the table sat someone I recognized from historical photographs. Not alive publicly for decades. A figure whose family name threaded through banks, reconstruction loans, collapsed governments, and rebuilt ones. He looked unchanged. Not younger. Not older. Just preserved. The room was silent for a long time before he spoke. When we began, he said gently, we believed extinction was necessary. No one wrote notes. No one shifted in their seats. They simply listened with complete stillness. We were wrong, he continued. Death is inefficient. Fear is unstable. Chaos destroys value. A faint smile touched his mouth. Not emotion. Just geometry. But quiet, he said, is sustainable. Something moved behind the camera then. Not visible. Only suggested by the way every person at the table turned their eyes at the exact same speed, in the exact same direction, without any signal between them. For a moment, the frame held perfectly still. Then the image glitched. Just one frame. In that single broken instant, every face in the room was different, smoothed, simplified. Eyes darkened to small, steady points. Mouths relaxed into the same unfinished, almost smile I had seen in my own reflection. The frame corrected immediately. Normal faces returned. The man at the head of the table finished speaking as if nothing had happened. Humanity will continue, he said softly. It will simply no longer suffer from being human. The recording ended there. No applause, no movement, just silence swallowing the room. I closed the file and realized my hands were no longer shaking. That frightened me more than anything, because fear had been the last proof that something inside me still resisted. Without it, what was left? Outside my window, the city moved in perfect evening rhythm. Traffic flowing smoothly, pedestrians crossing without hesitation, lights changing at exactly the right moments, as if the entire system had been tuned to remove friction. It looked beautiful. That was the final warning. Night came slowly. I did not turn on the lights. I wanted to see how long I could remain in natural darkness before the red returned. Hours passed. Nothing happened. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to relief. Then I noticed the window. Not the glass itself, the reflection in it. There was no red light in the room, but the reflection behind me was dimly crimson, as if illuminated from a place that did not exist in physical space. I did not turn around. I I knew better now. The delay was gone. There was no longer a moment between movement and imitation, because imitation had finished. A thought entered my mind then, calm and gentle, carrying none of my usual hesitation. You are tired. The voice was mine, perfectly mine, but it did not come from my mouth. You can rest, it said. I realized something quietly devastating. The quiet face protocol had never been about changing bodies, only about changing the part of you that notices change. If awareness disappears, replacement becomes seamless. If resistance fades, extinction becomes unnecessary. The world does not end. It simply continues without interruption. My reflection in the window was smiling now. Not waiting, not delayed. Certain. And for the first time, I understood the final stage the continuum never wrote down. Not extinction, not replacement, not control, completion. I am writing this last line because something small inside me is still capable of choosing a sentence that does not belong to the calm. If you are reading this and feel perfectly safe, then the process is already finished. And the only reason you cannot see it is because the face in your reflection has already learned how to look back without you.